She has been a great partner. She serves as co-chairs of one of our AG task force. I go to her for a lot of questions and issues that we need support from the AG on. She really helped the AG put together all of his programs. He was very skimpy on what he told you he did as national president, but he has put, why don't you describe how many programs when you come up here he's put on, just quickly. He's put on numerous programs for the AGs about veterans and how to deal with veterans, and I think he's really jumpstart probably a lot of states in moving forward with projects, because we like to think Ohio is way ahead of the curve, and so she helped really put a lot of those together. So she had a very busy year, and we'll probably take a sigh of relief when his term ends and she can relax a little bit, but she's been just one of my favorite partners at the AG's office, so I want to welcome Carrie.
Hello. Bring this up a little bit. Well, Carrie Bartunek, Attorney General's office. And yes, I have been sort of crowned the veteran queen of our office in the last few years. And be real honest with you, I'm not a veteran, didn't know much about veterans, don't have any veterans in my immediate family. So it was all new to me when I was asked to jump in. So over the course of probably 5 years now, I've become pretty passionate about veterans and helping veterans, and the more I learn, the more I want to help, so that's why I'm here. I think Attorney General Yost, when he was talking, explained that it was about, well, right at the beginning of his first term, that Justice Kennedy at the time came to us, and I was in the meeting with him, and she said, you know, this is your bailiwick, law enforcement is your area, and I want you to pick up this program, Veterans Response Program, and spread it across the state. And he said, great idea, here Carrie, see what you can do. So that's how I got involved. So with that, basically the program in law enforcement is all about developing better communications, better understanding between veterans and first responders, and then getting them connected to the resources they need. So with the idea of trying to spread it across the state, I of course went out and said, well, do we have any already? That's when I met Sergeant Corlett, who spoke earlier. Both Dayton and Cincinnati had programs, and I visited both, sat down with their groups to learn a little bit more about it. Dayton does it a little differently. They do their veteran response within their CIT, so it's not specific just to veterans, but they do a lot of training so that they're prepared. But Cincinnati, as you know from Corlett, does a program that's completely separate just for veterans, so they're probably the deepest I found when I was searching, and did a lot of work with him and with others, and ended up creating something that I've put on all your tables, which is the Veteran Response Guide. This is really just a bulleted, quick reference guide on if you're interested in this program, here's things to consider, here's what could be included, and here's how I can help. Inside of that, it's important to note that every program is different. Across the state, we've started these programs, everybody's doing it at a different level. So it's definitely something that can be fine-tuned and made to fit your community and your law enforcement and what's comfortable and works for your area. So I would say that up front. So after meeting with everyone and researching for the program and putting the guide together, before I go into what exactly is involved in starting a program, I want to show you a video that we put together to sort of spread the word across the state. I think the video probably does a better job than I can in explaining what it's all about. So,
veterans are the citizens who have demonstrated by their actions that they're willing to put something more than self-interest as their guiding principle. They act on behalf of the common good and lay their lives on the line doing it.
There are roughly 680,000 veterans living in Ohio, including 17,000 from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, some dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injuries. For some of those who bravely served, post-military life may lead down a path of drug abuse, violence, and bounce with the justice system.
When they come back, we treat them frequently like any other person, not recognizing what they might have seen in battle, how it might have changed them, or honoring the fact that they were willing to put all of us above their self-interest when they served.
Former service members make up 6.5% of the homeless population and account for about 17% of suicides nationwide. Law enforcement knows this reality all too well. Many officers are veterans themselves. That's why Attorney General Dave Yost is partnering with local law enforcement across Ohio to boost local support for veterans through the development of veterans response programs, bringing law enforcement, courts, and community resources together to better help veterans in need.
I think it requires a different response from society. One of the things that we know is that in combat, you are experiencing trauma. It's a stress response. Later on, when you come back to civilian life, you still have that hypervigilance. You still have that in the moment now remembrance. And when you get triggered, you're going to act not in the way a civilian acts. We've seen a number of our veterans trying to re-enter that have ended up in conflict with law enforcement. So the cool thing about this program is that it identifies people who have served both in the military and have come out into civilian life as police officers. That signal to a veteran tells him that there's a brother or a sister in arms and can help that officer de-escalate the situation.
In Cincinnati, Sergeant Dave Corlett started the Military Liaison Group within the Cincinnati Police Department, highlighted by the local news. The group is designed to respond when a veteran is in distress. Corlett served in the Army and wears a pin on his police uniform as an identifier to fellow vets.
Corlett recalls the situation of a barricaded veteran threatening suicide.
Our crisis negotiator had been on the phone with him for 90 minutes before he remembered that we existed. Called me, woke me up, and said, "Hey, I need you down here." 10 minutes later, he walked out and surrendered to me, and I personally drove him up to the Veterans Administration Hospital.
The beauty of this is that it's customizable. This is not a top-down, one-size-fits-all. We're there to help them understand why this concept works, but to design their own approach to it that works with their police force, the nature of the officers that they have, the expectations of their own communities.
In Northwest Ohio, the Lucas County Sheriff's Office is one of the first programs the Attorney General's office has helped get up and running.
Under our previous administration, Sheriff John Tharp met with the Attorney General to talk specifically about what veteran services we could provide. We chose to take what Cincinnati was doing and modify it a little bit. We geared it more towards our inmate population. So what we do is when an inmate is booked, it's part of our booking questionnaire that asks whether or not they are a veteran. If they're a veteran, it checks a box. That automatically sends an email with their information to the Veterans Administration.
From there, Major Tricia White says the veteran's VA information is sent to Toledo Municipal Court, where that veteran is added to the Special Veterans Court docket, effectively creating a roster of vets within the Lucas County Jail.
And I have 3 sergeants that are veterans themselves that took it upon themselves to initiate this program and make sure that it maintains itself. They go up and they interview, speak with that veteran, and give them a pamphlet that's specifically designed to our correction center. And it talks about the services that are available to veterans while they're in custody here, just making sure that they know all the resources that they have available to them. Those officers go up in a specific uniform that shows that they are veterans, so that the inmate then knows that they are talking to a peer.
That if you're a veteran, you're always going to be a veteran, and they will always be there for you.
Jeffrey Prelip is an Army veteran serving time in Lucas County Jail. He said the program and his meetings with Sergeant Mark Gumpf, a fellow veteran, is already impacting his outlook.
When I seen him and he talked to me, it just took a huge weight off of me. I mean, I just kind of like relaxed. Sitting in here for the last 4 months, that's all I thought about is, when did I lose that sight of what I was going for, taking care of the house, taking care of my vehicle, my bills, everything. When did I throw that away? It's just allowed me to really open my eyes and think back to those values that says, that's not who you are.
Those little things add up and can turn into huge things that really impact someone's life.
While the police are the nucleus that these teams form around, that's not the beginning of the end. They're working together with the community to pull these teams together, and the teams themselves will have other professions, other expertise that they bring in, whether that's mental health or addiction services.
We've also shared what we did, our resource pamphlets, with Toledo Police Department and Toledo Fire, who are also handing them out to vets that they come in contact with.
Allowing people to design their own path is critical, and our program is set up to encourage and to facilitate that.
Don't say you can't, because I can't in the military doesn't exist. You have to try. No matter what you do, you always have to be a bigger person. If it's not for you, it's for the person next to you. Especially to know that if I'm struggling, I can go talk to somebody. So yeah.
That we want to honor the particular self-sacrificial trauma that they have suffered, and to help them navigate their return to civilian life.
But it is a good summary of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. The one gentleman, he really chokes me up every time I see him. And that's what it's all about, right, is reaching them and trying to get them the help they need so that they can move on. Within a program, just to give you a general idea, the whole idea really is to improve communications with first responders and veterans and to hook them up, to be a bridge to resources outside of the court system to get them where they need to be. So I guess that is Intercept 1, right? So I think we're doing a pretty good job in Ohio. Since I started working on this, I've been traveling around the state with the caveat that COVID slowed us down for a couple years there. But we're back and getting pretty strong now. I have, and I'm very excited to announce, 56 law enforcement agencies across the state who have taken up the program in some form. So what does that mean? The program can be anything from just simply wearing the pins that you saw Sergeant Corlett had on, all the way to creating a response team and a whole lot of things in between. So the pins, as we've talked about this morning, are an identifier of police officers who are veterans themselves. And that immediately opens up better communication between the individual veteran who is struggling at that moment and the first responder that shows up. They may not, want to admit they are a veteran. A lot of times because of the circumstance, they're embarrassed and they don't want to admit that. Or they see police officers or deputies as the enemy, so to speak, and they don't want to engage. But if they see that pin and they think that, oh, I'm dealing with a brother here or a sister here, I'm going to talk with you because I think you get me and you understand the circumstances I'm in, right? So I think the pins are really important. If I got nothing else done but to get all my veteran police officers and deputies wearing pins, I'd be excited. So that's the reason I went to the Attorney General and said, we need to provide these pins. So we are working on it right now. Should have them pretty soon. It's interesting. It's much harder to get pins than you would think because we have to, as the state, get pins that are made in the United States. That's hard to find. But I did eventually find a company, and we are ordering pins that will simply just say military veteran, but should stand out. And we're offering that to any police agency or sheriff's office that has law enforcement officers that are veterans and would like to wear the pin on their uniform. So some of my 56 agencies are just there. They're starting to wear the pins, or they've ordered the pins from us. And that's a good first step. The other thing that my office is offering that's free of charge to help get these programs started is training. So I think it's really important, particularly if you get a response team going, that the individuals that are out on the street working with veterans or are responding to a crisis have got a little bit of training on how to handle veterans in crisis. So We have friends in the audience today who are with the VA here locally in Central Ohio, Chief Robinson and Dr. Robinson. They do training across mostly Central Ohio, but I think you guys have gone out into the state even more to do what they call Veterans in Crisis training. Have I got that title right? Yeah. And so one is the Chief of Police for our VA here locally. The other is, I don't know, psychologist, is that the correct title? Psychologist, at the VA here in Central Ohio. So they know what they're talking about, and they've been doing training, I don't even know how many years. How many years have you guys been doing this? 6 years? And they have just recently agreed to let the Attorney General's office videotape their training and get it up online on OPATA online. So then it's free to all officers through OPATA. And for those of you that are with law enforcement, it is CPT accredited, so you will be able to get that credit for it. But the training, probably hour and a half when it's videotaped, 2 hours when it's videotaped, will be up and online. We're hoping to have that done by the first of the year. We're scheduling with them right now to get it taped. So that will be offered for free as well. Those two things will come from the office to help kick it off, but then you have me and my staff to help you actually get it going. So some of the things you can do aside from the training and the pins is some of the things you saw in the video, creating resource pamphlets or brochures or information that are specific to your communities. So a lot of you are the resources that we want to put into that brochure or that pamphlet that can be used locally. So we are encouraging agencies to create those brochures to be able to pass those out. There's also, I think, a real need to update paperwork in police agencies. We tend to, when we identify veterans, identify them once they are in the system. Really typically once they're incarcerated, right? That's when we might ask the question, are you a veteran? I would like us to find that out right away on the street when you're talking to that person, because as you know, from the information we received, not all of them are going to be arrested. And so let's get the information that we have a veteran that's in need of help, whatever that help might be, early on. So I ask when they do their incident reports, if they need to change their report, change it so that there is a check mark, this person has served in the military. So they immediately get that attention and they get driven into the right direction if they do end up incarcerated and in the court system. So I like to see that identification happen a little earlier. The other thing that is really important about the program that not all the agencies have picked up on yet, but I'm working on it, is to then, after you've got sort of your internal setup, right? You got your paperwork, you got your pins, you got your training. Well, now let's bring in the community. Let's be, when I say let's be, I'm talking law enforcement, be that common denominator that brings people to the table in their community that already care about veterans. Either they care about veterans or they're already serving veterans, and bring them to the table to talk about veterans in your community. What do they need? What are we seeing out there? What are we missing? What can we do to create change? How can I work with you whenever I, a law enforcement, come across an individual who doesn't need to be arrested but definitely needs help? Who do I call, right? It's interesting in the conversations I've been in the early on conversations in communities that are trying to pull together their, what I call community committee, community task force, you can call it whatever you want, but they meet regularly, typically every other month, maybe quarterly once you get going well. But when they first meet, it's so interesting to me that people within the same community that are helping the same group of veterans don't know each other and don't know what they're doing. You know, oh, I didn't know you existed. Oh, I didn't know you do that. Oh, that's good for me because now I can send somebody there that I don't offer that service, but now I know where to send them, right? And all of a sudden, they sort of take over the meeting. The community members sort of take over and the police can sort of sit back and listen because they really start to synergize and come up with plans and ideas and exchanging contact information. And it really is sort of interesting and exciting to see them grow at that table. And then if you want to take this program to its ultimate, it is the bottom line to create a response team. So a veterans response team would be the police officer, the deputy, maybe a fire department response, could be any of those first responders. It's them, but also bringing in the community members we talked about. So that's mental health. That might be your homeless shelter director, right? Might be Easter Seals. I know Dave Corlett talked about that. I didn't even know Easter Seals had a section that is devoted to veterans. Pretty interesting. So every community will have different organizations that work with veterans already, and you need to bring them all to the table. So one of the things I do is I have 8 individuals that work across the state, and they know their areas, right? They know their regions, so they know the social workers and the different types of agencies that they need to reach out to. They help the police agencies get the right people to the table for them. And so let's just say you get a dozen people at the table that's meeting to talk about veterans. To get one of these teams going, you probably need 4 or 5 of those individuals to commit to the team. If they commit to the team, you want them to take the training that we just talked about, but then you also want them to agree to respond 24/7. So the reason I say that is if I'm an officer out on the street and I come across an individual who, again, does not need to be arrested, but it's midnight, and I know if I just leave him there, he's not going to be there again in the morning, right? I'm not going to be able to find him when I reach out to the VA or whoever I reach out to. So it's at that point you want to be able to call that veterans response team, wake them up and ask them if a couple of them will come down and work with this individual right away. Get him to the homeless shelter, get him to a hospital, whatever the need is. So when Dave Corlett told me that they do that in Cincinnati, I said, let's talk about that. That seems like a big ask. And so I said, how often is that really needed? And he said, it doesn't happen that often. He said, typically we can handle things during regular hours, and we don't need that. He said, but when you do need it, you need it, and it's really nice to have. So it's more rare that it's needed, but it is, I would say, critical when needed that you can get that assistance out there quickly. The other thing that I want to talk about, and I don't want to forget, because in these booklets, I didn't think about sheriff's offices and jails. I just didn't think about it when I created this booklet. Clearly, I need to update it when I get some free time. But that's a whole nother level that this program can take through the sheriff's offices that, to me, actually, I found really exciting. So as you saw, Lucas County was one of our first sheriffs. He was our first sheriff to take this on in a big way, and got excited about it and started a program. And so they're one of our premier programs now alongside Cincinnati. And they do it a little differently. They still have deputies out on the street that are giving out information and doing the things I talked about, but now they've taken the program into the jails. And so you saw a little bit of that on the video. They basically are sitting down with any individual who's a veteran, who's incarcerated for whatever amount of time they have them in the jail, right? Because most of them aren't going to prison. Most of them are going back out into our community. So they sit down with them every other week, sometimes every week, depending on what they need. They go through that resource list she showed us, and they just talk about, why are you here? What happened? What's going on in your life? And then we need an exit plan. You're leaving here in a month. You're leaving here in 2 weeks. What do you need? Where are you going? Do you have a place to live? Do you have a job? Do you have food? Do you need mental health care? What are your needs? Here's the resources. Let's get you connected while you're still inside so that when you go out that door, somebody's picking you up and taking you to where you need to go and making sure that you don't return. That's really exciting to me. So that's an Intercept 1, probably going into another step, but really exciting to me. Maybe that was at 4. I don't remember my levels now. But that I think is exceptional because anybody who works in law enforcement knows that we see repeat visitors. And if we can eliminate that in the veteran population, that would be extremely exciting. So that's the program in a nutshell. I will give you, because Justice Stratton asked me to, a little bit about what the AG's office has been doing for the last year, and then I'll close up. As he told you, the AG was selected to be the president of NAG. NAG is the National Association of Attorneys General, so all the attorneys general from across the nation come together on a regular basis through NAG. And he gets to pick his presidential initiative, is what they call it, and he picked veterans, right? And then again, Carrie, make that happen. So here we go. So it's been really exciting to be looking at this issue and looking at it at a national perspective. What can we share? What can we do? So we have a presidential initiative summit, much like this, that we did, I think it was April. And that's really when we first started talking to the other AGs about what we're doing here in Ohio and asking other AGs to step forward and present on what they're doing so that we could share ideas, right? And other people could pick up those ideas. I met a lot of veterans through this programming. I highlighted veterans from Ohio because I get to, right? Because I'm from Ohio. That was eye-opening for me. I had one veteran do the conference who is still going through PTSD, still going through the struggle. And he was so open and honest with us. We just did sort of a fireside chat, if you will, with him, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room. So my point is to tell you that when I do these, I want to give you the why, right? Especially the AGs, especially law enforcement. Why should we care? I mean, that's really the bottom line, right? Why should we care? Those of you in the room already do, so I don't have to play that with you. However, in those conferences, when I want AGs to care, that story from Ohio made them care. Oh, I get it. I get why we need to do more. So very exciting. Been sharing ideas. We've had 2 webinars since then where we've had large audiences come in, and we've talked about we talked about suicide one time, talked about some other subjects of how AGs can step up and do some more for veterans. Talked about the program I'm talking about now. Obviously, we're pushing that. And we have our final conference in his year as president coming up in December. And again, we'll be doing some programming for veterans. And one of the things I think I want to just share with you that I think is in its infancy, but I want you to know it might be coming, or should be coming, is I've been talking with the DOD and a fellow that works with the DOJ in that veterans space. And he's high up, he's high in the ranks, and he's going to come to the conference and talk to all the AGs about something that he's been working on that Attorney General Yost asked about and found that they were already starting to talk about it anyway, so I think we helped boost this a little bit. But really what's going to happen, hopefully, is that right now when veterans come home, the information about where they're going doesn't really ever reach the states before they get there, right? And then even when they get there, sometimes it's hard to get that information because I think the only people that get that information is the Department of Veterans Affairs within each state. So the AGs don't get it. And in general, we don't get it quick enough to get to the veterans and start providing them with those resources when they get home. Quite frankly, just to welcome them home and give them a nice welcome, right? So the DOD is working to put together a program where states will receive information about who is coming home within the last 6 months of them still serving. So we will know at least 6 months out from when they're going to come home that they're coming home, and they've written down on whatever form they fill out that they're coming to Ohio. We'd like to even break that down and find out where in Ohio they're coming, so we're still working on that, because I would love law enforcement and government, local government, mayors, however the program is for each area, to literally have a welcome home packet for these individuals that come home that gives them, kudos, quite frankly, but then also gives them all the resources that are available in their county to them so that they can be connected right away. Because I think Corlett gave it the best when he said anywhere along that trajectory of 7 years, we could jump into that train and stop it, right? Well, what if we got ahead of that train? So that's my hope. He's coming to speak at our conference. He has Ohio on he did 5 states as a pilot project. It went well. So we got him to put Ohio into the second set of states of that pilot project. And we should be starting, my understanding was December. They would start working with Ohio to send us the information early on so that we can get out ahead of veterans that are coming home. So with that, the only other thing I'll tell you is on the back of this brochure is a map. All the individuals on that map are my team that works with me to get this veterans program up and running. So you can certainly reach out to them, or you can reach out to me directly. I've got cards out here if anybody wants one. I'll give you my email address if you want to write it down. It's simply Carrie, C-A-R-R-I-E, Bartunek. I will let you guys guess how that's no. BARTUNEK at ohioago.gov. So reach out to me if you're interested. I'd love to work with you. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. SAVE training? I can give them mine. They've got it.
The question was, is the training that we do at the VEA or that we provide more than just SAVE training, correct? I mean, it is. We talk about some of the things, the different eras those veterans might be dealing with at this point. We talk about PTSD, mental health, substance use, things to be aware of that veterans have gone through that might be contributing to the crisis that they might be in, that is the reason the law enforcement is there. We do go through the SAVE, what that is and how that can help in a situation. And then Chief Robinson does de-escalation, identifying a veteran, and safety considerations.
I'm glad you were here to answer that. Any other questions? Love to work with any of you. Thank you.